Right now on Up with KREM, we are tracking Hurricane Milton after making landfall overnight. The latest conditions out of Florida.
A mix of clouds and sun for today as temps are a bit cooler, but the only thing we're tracking is the chance to see the northern lights tonight.
And Spokane Public School Board looking at changing the school schedule, some of the options, and when we could see the changes.
Up with KREM begins now.
Well, good morning, everyone. It is 6 a.m. on this Thursday morning. Thanks so much for joining us here on Up with KREM today. I'm Channing Curtis. We begin with overnight updates from Hurricane Milton, which made landfall in Florida last night as a Category 3 storm. We do have some new video this morning out of Fort Pierce, Florida, showing just one of the many tornadoes that has caused damage in the area as the storm came in. Now, earlier this morning, we did hear from Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who said that the National Weather Service has not had a chance to confirm some of the tornadoes that different spotters spotted around the Florida area. But Hurricane Milton had maximum sustained winds of 120 miles per hour once it hit the coast. The Hurricane Center says that Milton is forecasted to, quote, maintain hurricane intensity while it moves northeast across the Florida peninsula before emerging off of Florida's east coast sometime today. Now, Floridians who did not evacuate have been advised to hunker down as that still dangerous storm swirls throughout the state. Right now, millions of residents there are still without power this morning. CBS News' Christian Benavides reports from Tampa with the latest.
Hurricane Milton came roaring ashore on Florida's west coast overnight, bringing with it life-threatening winds, heavy rains, and dangerous storm surge.
I hear a lot of wind outside.
Bradenton resident Angie Samaro and her family are riding out the storm at home, located outside of the evacuation zone.
We knew that we wanted to stay.
Closer to the Gulf Coast in Newport Richey, residents and their pets took shelter in this middle school gym.
We take this stuff serious, and we live in a flood zone.
In the days leading up to the storm, millions were urged to evacuate. Last night, Florida's governor said it's too late for those who did not heed those earlier warnings.
It's too dangerous to evacuate safely, so you have to shelter in place and just hunker down.
Already, there are reports of deaths, injuries, and extensive property damage after tornadoes swept through parts of the state ahead of Milton's arrival. In Tampa, the storm struck as residents were still cleaning up from Helene, dumping 3 to 5 inches of rain an hour.
We've got your back.
Yesterday, President Joe Biden said the federal government has millions of meals, water, and thousands of personnel on the ground for response. Tropicana Field had been set up as a base for National Guard and emergency workers earlier this week. Last night, strong winds ripped the stadium's roof to shreds. Christian Benavides, CBS News, Tampa, Florida.
The National Weather Service did warn Florida residents to be prepared for long-duration power outages caused by Hurricane Milton. Already, more than 3 million people are without power there, according to the website poweroutage.us. Now let's get over to our weather expert, meteorologist Thomas Patrick, because Thomas, I know you've been tracking this storm and breaking down the information for us. What can you tell us about the storm right now?
Yeah, right now, Hurricane Milton has crossed the entire state of Florida. It took about 7 hours to get from the Gulf Coast to the Atlantic coast, and now it is out into the Atlantic Ocean. So from here on out, it should just be cleanup from here. But this was a very odd and very unique hurricane because it wasn't just those maximum sustained winds. Obviously, you saw the tornadic impact that it had. Let's actually back up the loop and show you that it is these thunderstorms from the band, that one of the outer bands of the hurricane, that produced all these tornadoes across central and southern Florida. And there were at one point more than 50 tornado warnings that were issued throughout the state. And that was before Milton made landfall. Now, as it did make landfall at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, look at the nature of this hurricane. It only looks like it's one-sided. There was so much dry air that was pushing in from the southern flank, which I do believe contributed to the tornado threat earlier, but it actually avoided a worst-case scenario for areas like Fort Myers, which again, we're still cleaning up after Hurricane Ian from a few years ago. So this was still obviously devastating from the Tampa perspective, but it certainly avoided a worst worst case scenario for areas to the south just because of how lopsided and one-sided Hurricane Milton ended up being for Florida. But again, as of right now, it has completely crossed the state. It is now out to sea. There's only just a little bit of leftover rain on the Atlantic side of Florida. Otherwise, we're pretty much finished with Milton.
All right, at 6:05, let's take a look at some of our local top stories today. A new trial date for the man accused of killing 4 University of Idaho students has officially been set for next August in Ada County. A new scheduling order states Bryan Kohberger's trial will take place starting August 11th and could last until November. The documents also outline that Kohberger can keep his defense counsel. The next hearing is scheduled for November 7th for arguments on motions challenging the death penalty. A flight headed from Seattle to Turkey had to make an emergency landing in New York on Wednesday morning after the pilot died on board. A spokesperson for Turkish Airlines says the 59-year-old pilot lost consciousness at some point after the flight left SeaTac overnight. Crew members made an emergency landing and worked to revive the pilot, but he died before the plane landed. The pilot had worked at Turkish Airlines since 2007. And the Idaho Department of Lands is extending closed fire season indefinitely because of the unseasonably warm and dry weather we're experiencing right now. So that means burn permits are required for any open burning outside of city limits anywhere in Idaho. The closed fire season usually lasts from May 10th through October 20th, but hazardous fuel conditions have elevated the risk of wildfires. And that's a look at some of this morning's top stories. The Spokane Public School Board is looking into potential changes to the school schedule, and that includes start times and an adjusted summer break. KREM 2's Connor McAvoy has more on what was discussed at the school board meeting.
Wednesday's school board meeting showed a change President Nikki Lockwood says has been talked about for the past year.
To make the summer break a little shorter and to provide a few more breaks during the school year. And those breaks help students who need to catch up a little bit.
A change to the school year calendar with an additional topic changing the everyday schedules of students and staff, creating later start times for students. A presentation by SPS Chief of Staff Heather Bybee relayed research she says showed later start times helping students academically in both grades and test scores.
Teens, as they get a little bit older, they do like to stay up later, so that is part of their natural, kind of progression and circadian rhythms.
Lockwood, like all members of the board, listened to Bybee present the research, emphasizing long-term discussions have to happen before the change can take effect.
Talk about what's possible, talk about where there's opportunity, and then listen to those concepts through the lens of different perspectives across the community.
Lockwood agrees. Addressing the start times and yearly calendar potentially changing aren't just a factor for students, as well as parents, teachers, and other staff with SPS.
Any change that we do at the school district has just huge ripple effects, and so we really need our community to understand the why and then how this is going to look for them.
The teachers union still needs to negotiate the calendar year change for the fall 2026 school year. SPS says they're not making any scheduling changes as they plan next year's calendar. Next Tuesday, October 15th, I'll be moderating the Spokane NAACP Candidate Forum in Town Hall. Al French and Molly Marshall, the candidates vying for the Spokane County Commissioner seat, will answer questions. Then 5th District Congressional candidate Carmela Conroy and Washington State Legislative 3rd District candidate Natasha Hill will participate in a town hall discussion. Now, their challengers either had a scheduling conflict or just declined the invitation altogether. The event at the Spokane Central Library begins Tuesday at 6 p.m. And then later this month, KREM 2 is hosting a 5th District Congressional debate. Candidates Carmela Conroy and Michael Baumgartner will be here in the KREM 2 studio on Wednesday, October 30th. The hour-long debate begins at 7 that evening and will air on KREM 2, KSKN 22, KREM 2 Plus, and KREM.com.
Time is now 6:09 as we take a look at our local weather forecast, where this morning it has started out a bit cloudy through the overnight hours, and that has actually kept our temperatures a little bit more mild than what they would have otherwise been. Now, the cloud cover is drifting away, so we might start cloudy but finish sunny today, which would be a perfect scenario for the inland northwest. A few cool spots, especially in northeastern Washington, as you would expect, but still at 41 degrees in Spokane. Nothing close to that freezing mark just yet here. So mostly cloudy to start the day, sunny to finish, and overall a pretty pleasant 67 for this afternoon.
All right, we're taking a live look at I-90 and Argonne Road at 6:09 on this Thursday morning. Traffic still moving along very smoothly along all the portions of I-90 we've been checking in on this morning. We'll take a look at some of our other traffic cameras throughout the morning and let you know if anything slows you down on your way into work. Well, it's time for your wake-up call on this Thursday morning. Did you know that today is World Mental Health Day? So this morning we're asking you, what do you do if you need a little bit of a break or maybe you just want to treat yourself? Text us at 509-448-2000 and share with us how you decide to treat yourself, maybe if you're having a rough day. One viewer saying, I love watching Teen Wolf over and over again to treat myself. I love that. Everybody has like a go-to movie or TV show, a comfort show that they like watching. Another viewer says, I like to go play bingo. That's a great one. I love that one. Another viewer saying that they treat themselves to local custom blended and ground coffee. That's probably the pro tip right there. Anyways, keep texting us your ways to treat yourself to 509-448-2000. Still ahead on Up with KREM, our hurricane coverage continues. Our National Verify team shows us how to spot hurricane misinformation online. But first, taking a live look outside over the Spokane Falls right now. It is so beautiful and peaceful this time of the morning. You can see the sun just starting to rise there over the horizon. Happy Thursday, Inland Northwest, or as we like to say around here, happy Friday Eve. We'll be back with more Up with KREM in about 3 minutes.